Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together.
I'll join the team, be an X-Man.
We are the future, Charles, not them.
What do you think, I'm stupid?
You and I are not so different.
You can't keep denying what you are, man.
Because I'm the best there is at what I do.
You, me, we're exceptional. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero.
Plague, war, famine, morality doesn't even enter into it.
I've heard these arguments before.
Think about it, hero!
You are watching Move, Throw, a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast. I am Charles, also known as Omnis, and I am here with mutant extremist Danny. What's going on, buddy?
See, it's really curious, like, which way you go with that one, right? Like,
yeah.
Are you extremists against the mutants? For I was your pro mutants here, but go multiple ways.
Yeah. You know, it was like mutant right activist, you know, what
yeah. Provocateur, right?
Yeah. You're on the slightly more extreme side of mutant right activists. Like, I don't feel like you would have a super passive approach to, you know.
Escalate very quickly.
Yeah. Yes. So always like figuring out how I'm going to introduce you every episode, because I don't want to say IR smart like rock every time.
Yeah, but every once in a while it makes it good.
Yeah,
that's I gotta like make.
I'm working it in. I'm working it in. You know.
How have you been?
Am I your paper or am I your scissors? Am I smart like paper or smart like scissors?
You.
Or lizard Spock. I will accept lizard or Spock as well.
I would say you're actually my scissors because you compliment me. You can do the things that I cannot.
Wait, rock crushes together. Scissors. You obliterate me is what you're saying.
Right, but you can do the thing that I cannot, which is get rid of paper.
Okay.
So you
have me around to like, okay, I see what you're...
See, I think ahead.
Yeah, you're like, bring on, you know, for backup. Bodyguard? I'm the Rock's bodyguard. Is that what's going on?
I would say we work together toward the communal goal of protecting me.
It's like have you seen the meme of Jason Momoa with his two bodyguards that are like a full foot shorter than him, and it's like, hey, you got to beat the two lieutenants to get to the real boss, you know, at that level.
Yes.
It's kind of
your
like
way
that.
Up. You got to get some levels. You got to pick the right skills. You really got to think about this.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. You have been dying to talk about Wonderman, and I'm caught up. I watched all of it. Where do you want to go with this? I binge watched the whole thing back to back, basically.
This is good. So I was not going to go super deep into spoilers, right? But like, I think it's a very interesting show because you could place that show at any point in the timeline after Shang-Chi. And it fits anyway, physically independent of everything else.
Yeah.
It involves a setting separate of everyone, so you're not stuck in New York trying to figure out what's happening. Everything's involving a bunch of people. It has some returning characters, like Damage Control, right? And your boyfriend, Miss Marvel, right? What's interesting here is how it plays out this whole scenario, right? We're just trying to go for the role of Wonderman and what's going on here with a man's mental state and what's happening.
So, funny thing, so you were just saying, you know, like no spoilers. This might actually be a spoiler-free show, right? Like, I'm trying to think of something that you could say about the show and actually ruin the experience, because I don't feel like any specific thing that happens in the show is necessarily critical. It's about the experience of viewing the thing. Like, nothing in it is particularly surprising, or it's all about kind of the execution on this thing. It's very different. It's very different than
what I liked was the midway through this series was Doorman, right? I believe that was episode 4. And so you could have this whole setup.
Doorman's probably the best part.
Like, out of nowhere, you have Doorman, and then you go on with the show, and Doorman is like a small miniature character arc where you're skipping through this person's life, understanding what's happening to them, and it's like this whole, it's like your Perry Bible Fellowship like comic, where it's going like the life and death of a meme, right? Where it's like, hey, it's funny, things are going great, lots of money, things are going terribly, you're played out, now things are desperate. Like you can see this whole arc play out for this character and what happens to them, and you see it happen, and you're like, oh, I see where this is going.
Okay, but I honestly, I think the Doorman part of this might be the best part of the show.
So good.
But it's also stuck there right in the middle, so it reminds me of like Book of Boba Fett, that all of a sudden becomes the Mandalorian show, like Mandalorian, season 2.5 or whatever for a hot minute. And you're like, well, that was awesome.
Okay.
I would definitely watch a Doorman show for sure. Like 100%. But I got to admit, I have mixed feelings on Wonderman.
Ew. I am very curious where you go with this one.
So here would be my, because I think the execution on it is great. I think the acting choice, and I don't know I didn't look up the actor who plays Wonderman, but I've liked him in everything that I've seen him in. And obviously, you have the Mandarin and the ex-Mandarin and their, Kingsley, and like their rapport is great. The problem that I have with the show is that it is fundamentally about acting. And I just, like, by contrast, I loved Billy Bob Thornton, Landman, because I'm like, I know fucking nothing about the oil industry. Like, nothing. And so I was like, kind of learning as I go. But the field of acting is kind of one of the most broadcast. Like, almost every actor has a podcast. And I've had so many people like, oh, do you want to listen to like this actor's podcast or this actor's podcast?
About their journey.
And it's just like, it feels like there's so much out there that's about, that I almost wish that this was about a powered individual in a different situation besides acting but like, I think that would kind of break up the story, but I just not sure I wanted to watch a show about being an actor, but it is this kind of weird middle ground between like The Boys, where almost all the superheroes are actors, and the MCU, where they're not. And then there's Wonderman, who's kind of in the middle, where it's not full on The Boys, but it's not your normal story. So it is totally unique, and like, I enjoyed it for what it is, but I think the fact that it was fundamentally about acting made it a less, like, not tippy top great. That would be my critique.
It's so interesting. So I think this topic is going to be like the divisive topic of the show.
For sure.
Like, not the characters or anything, is about the topic of like the nature of the show. And it being an industry insider piece, where it's like very much about the inside world view of being an actor and living in this scenario and trying to be a working actor and going through what that's like. I think part of this is going to be colored by your perception and how much exposure you have, right, to this world.
Sure.
It's like, it's going to be like novel or not, or like interesting, even like study piece for you, or it's going to feel very trite. Right. And it walks this very fine ground. I think it's very interesting to go with this piece for Marvel, right? To go very strong with an industry specific piece, which is very unusual for them, right? And not going the role led, like superhero focus. Like, you only really see him use his powers 3 or 4 times. Like,
it's
honestly,
it's fundamentally a show about an actor who happens to have superpowers. It is not a show about a superhero who happens to be an actor, right? Like, that's the big difference. And I think for what it was trying to do, I think it did an absolutely great job. It was just a thing that I was like, to a certain extent, I'm not sure I want them to change it, because I think it's supposed to be kind of a little bit of a stereotypical actor journey, but he is a superhero. And I don't think I don't think the point was to do like some sort of like super special different take on the actorverse, right? because it's meant to be that normal acting journey, but for someone who happens to have crazy superpowers.
Yes. I think part of it is trying to find a role that fits for an adult, right? And trying to do the character study that isn't like a sport or a team, because I think they would really want to open up a lot of that stuff and like younger actors for the X-Men and mutants coming up in the near future, right? And have lots of fun stories there and go backwards to like a younger generation, right? To your your first class again, and people like learning the ropes and everything.
So do we think that Wonder Man's going to be in like Doomsday and stuff? Like, do we know?
Don't believe he is.
Yeah. Well, it's also there. How often do we watch a Marvel thing where it isn't super clear what they're doing next with this character?
I mean, that's been the past several years now, where it just wasn't very clear. Like, okay, where is this character go? Where even in the timeline are they in relation to other characters to interact? Like, where was Quantumania happening? Like, when was that happening? Technically, like, I don't know.
But this gives you like no spoiler about like kind of what's next for him whatsoever.
Correct.
Like,
well, you just have the end scene where you're like, okay, clearly there's going to be some like repercussions here, but you don't, that could kind of go anywhere.
Yes. But you could cut it there. Like if it didn't go well and you have a complete story, that's like, if that's the conclusion to the story, obviously I think we want more. And I think the story would get more interesting from there. But if that's just like the show and that's just like the Wonder Man experience, it's good. Like there's nothing to complain about there. I think honestly, it's just the actors are what makes me want more of it more than anything else. Like I just think
like their interactions with each other over the course of the show is so interesting because you just have this, like Trevor Slattery's character, right? Being an actor and also being an actor. Within the show is like, oh, and be reminded of the Mandarin, like this whole character, like this whole path. He's like, oh yeah, that was an act, and they're like, yeah, but like, how'd you let it go? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, aren't you like a method actor? Like, what happened to it? And he's like, I don't talk about it. Bye.
That also might be one of the more interesting parts of the story is probably the parallels between being an actor and letting go the movie that you like. I don't know if this was 100% true, but I remember reading that Michael B. Jordan needed therapy after Black Panther 1. He specifically went to therapy about his role as Killmonger and like how he felt about it and such afterwards. And I'm not 100% sure that's true. Who knows on the internet these days? But I think there's probably not enough conversation about an actor spending so long in a particular role. And it's probably even more complicated for a show, right? Where you might spend more time as your role than you do as yourself, right? Where, you think about like Friends and stuff like that, and there's like how you have to like separate yourself from that afterwards is like an interesting conversation. And that they do dance around that with Trevor, Ben Kingsley. Like they dance around that topic a little bit. And that's an interesting topic. Like that topic is, but that,
where you're really getting at, and that separation between roles and characters and dealing with emotions, like I think there's been several examples of things not going well for actors, not being able to deal with the trauma and stress of the situations. Because like you live and think as that person long enough, you start hearing through that voice, start seeing things through that point of view. And then you start realizing you're like, wait, is this the me or is that the me? And you start having confusion.
Well, you see a lot of time when actors go on their tours for a particular movie or a show or whatever, they've totally changed their facial hair and their hair. And I wonder how much of that is like just totally intentional, where they're like, I need to now separate myself from this character and not like actively go, oh, I was clean shaven, gonna have a beard, long hair, gonna do short hair for a bit, had a cool mustache. Nope, that's gotta go. Like just doing something very different where you separate yourself immediately. I wonder how much of that is like their like marketing
process
team and stuff being like, hey, by the way, you should change your look immediately after keep it all flowing so you don't trap yourself in what feels like the visual of that character,
Yeah, this is why this show is so interesting to me, because it sparks these kinds of conversations and talk. This is why I also thought Midnight was very interesting, having conversations, right, about various disorders, right? I think that is an interesting show and topic to go through. Is that going to be a highly successful show monetarily? That's a different question, right? And driving lots of numbers going through. I think it's a very interesting show. And I think it's a piece I did not expect Marvel to put out, considering the last several pieces of media.
Considering their prior
I did not
this feels a little bit like watching Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time when you're like, I kind of wasn't expecting you guys to do this. Like,
you could do this? You're like, okay, I can be about this. I can be about this. Which is why when I saw the show
on a soundtrack,
I kept asking you about it because it's such an interesting show to talk about.
Yeah.
Right, there's so many things to talk about in this show. And just like a simple way, what I liked is that, yes, superheroes and the concept of superheroes are involved in the plot and obviously have a factor in it. But it wasn't just, hey, we're setting up scenarios for this character to fight other people and we just need a random bad guy in a suit for us to fight and everything. Where it's like, no, the whole problem is internal. We're trying to resolve conflicts and walk through problems. Not everything has to be giant explosions and pulling people up at the end.
Okay, so one thing I will say, favorite part outside of Doorman is the him going into the home to learn.
Yes.
I thought
with
that segment.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
like after that, when he was studying the random dude out in the Midwest or whatever, I forget where that was located. I don't want to get into all the details of that, but him doing the like, I want to study you. Like that wasn't a long thing. I did think that was super interesting.
Also, like first episode stuff, when you first meet Simon and the interactions between him and the director in that first show.
Yeah.
And you're like, things aren't going well because you started just going way over your head and start commanding everything. It's like, yep. And then taking this character, how do we go from this character to a superhero? Like, where do you even go with this person? Because this person doesn't seem like they had anything going on.
Yeah. I mean, the opening sequence was a little hard for me to watch because I just don't like watching people be in super uncomfortable situations where it's like, it's obviously it's intentional. You're seeing where this is going, but it's like, I'm sure people who work in that field are like, yes, that kind of stuff happens all the time. And each person has their own journey. And obviously it works in the whole context, but we've probably talked about Wonderman for like 20 minutes. So I think we should move on to what we've been up to. Danny, do you have some up to Benning that you want to share?
Yeah, so this week I've been painting because I looked at the date and then realized that CarlCon was this weekend, or this upcoming weekend. I was like, I should finish painting. So I spent a lot of time cranking through. Prime's got primary colors on. I am doing some highlights. I decided the unifying colors because I was looking at Cyclops and I was looking at X-Wing 3 and I realized they both have red on them.
Yep.
So in keeping with the red theme, and Honey Badger also has red. I was like, okay, so we'll just keep going with the red theme. So Emma now has a red dress for her outfits. So very nice red dress from like a maroonish, like mid, like purplish red, like a dark red, up to like a bright red to give it some nice layers for that sick cape. I have Colossus is like a deep red for his skin, for the metal steel, organic steel skin, and gave him his fancy leotard, which is like a bright baby blue and like a yellow stripe. Where I have Magic being the opposite, where she has like the red sword and like the portals that she's coming out of, to kind of keep the theme and everything. Because I like having like a unifying thread between models and
you got a scheme going on. You got a scheme.
And then that way, if it's one color, they can cross into other themes. You sort of think like, oh, well, if I take this color, they sort of fit in both teams and kind of go from there. So that's what I've been focusing on. So I got most of that done this weekend. I have one or two more layers of painting to do, and then I will like gloss and do some washes and stuff. And then that should be enough for the weekend. Yeah. So that's my focus.
my week has been mostly working on videos, but I do have the new boxes, and so I'm probably going to be assembling Moondragon tomorrow and Phyla-Vell. I believe that stuff arrived at my door today. So yeah, so gonna be working on those. But yeah, it was mostly for me. It's been like working on the videos and
assembling models. A lot of work.
Yeah. But I had tried something for a Shatterpoint tournament, and I basically made trophies that utilized some of my extra models, and I painted them gold, silver, and bronze on the top of these, like, basically wood plinths and stuff, and then add a plaque to the front. And it actually turned out pretty well, and so I'm excited to do it for MCP for the next event that we do. I guess the one little project, I started realizing that for a prize, I could give out AMG tokens that I've done the resin covering, like doing the dimensional magic on it. And so I've already done up a set of objective tokens, and we're doing another one, but I'm going to be looking at like being able to give some of that stuff away at events, where I think that'll just be a cool little thing that probably not actually that hard for me, but I think people will probably appreciate it. You know, it's just like little extra things at events. So
For sure.
Well, do you want to get into the main topic?
Of course I do.
All right. So, I pitched this to you because I've been thinking about it a lot for videos and stuff, like what missions are really interesting together and create unique decision making. And then also just like, which ones do I enjoy, which I have talked about off and on, but we're going to start off with, so it is funny because when I told you I put this on the list, you were like, why did you put this on the list? I was like, I feel like I have to. If we're going to talk about interesting combinations, a lot of people like Infinity Formula and hammers, and I don't like it. I think it's one of the most spiky win more combinations, because it's like, oh, when you're doing well, you're like, yeah, I throw you off of the thing, and so you're not getting extra power. I have all the hammers. I can put all the hammers on Hulk. I like all of my characters get to do their cool stuff faster. And so like, you know, I don't like it, but it is the quintessential like MCP experience where I feel like Infinity Formula and hammers will probably be like one of the go-to, just like roll lots of dice, have all of the power.
I feel like it's like acceleration, the combination, because you can punch harder and you gain more power. So the two things you want to do in a lot of aggressive lists, you can do more of. So all the high threat characters have more powers, more abilities. So anyone that can send power well does well. And most of the pretty good fighters go to amazing fighters, because one dice is better than a reroll because you have the potential to crit.
Yep.
And more potential for triggers, a bunch of things happen. And like there's certain characters going from 5 dice to 6 dice just turns them into like death machines. They have so much ability to affect the board, it goes crazy. So on one hand, I get like, hey, I want to do my thing, and that's cool and fun. On the other hand, the combination of Infinity just means that the zone just sort of divides in half. And it goes, you both grab your home, and then you decide which of the side hammers you're going for first. And I guess like, if you're playing grunts, you can try to go for both and help to play it out from there. But like, that's all plays out. And from there, it's just you're defending points and kind of shooting at each other, and you're getting more power. And basically, whoever has more throws most of the time does better.
Yeah, I do like the layout combination. I do like the combination of D shape plus B shape. I do think works quite well together. But we don't have to spend that long on that one. I do want to, so one of my go-to favorites, I would probably play Extremis consoles and cubes anytime. I love it. Has always been my demo mission combination. I think it really shows the dynamic nature of needing to be kind of all around the board. The layouts are very opposite to each other. So, you know, you end up in this situation where the extract is not that close to a secure location. And like, you can't just grab extracts and just run everyone back to your home point, because then you're giving up the midline. So having an extract advantage becomes kind of pointless. And then there's the dynamics of trying to balance the healing and the damage that you're taking, and how you manage those two things. Like, I just think it is really interesting. And even though I know it is viewed as a very skewed version of MCP, I think it is still one of my favorite combinations.
I think the part that skews it is that you get to choose when things sort of happen. The bad situation is if you don't have prio and you take a cube damage and you're close to dying, right? And then it's like, oh, you just set up to die there. But a lot of times you can potentially heal multiple times on this character, right? If they can move between 2 points, they can heal themselves twice. Another character could heal them. So it lets you mitigate a lot of the higher threats. So I think this is why defensives, I used to play like webs all the time. I play like when you want to play scenario teams or you have ways of healing yourself like X-Men, right? Like Logan loves this scenario. So it's like, oh, you're just sort of running around and be like, I'm just going to juggernaut my way through the game. And if you can't alpha strike me hard enough, I'm probably going to win. And I think that's the problem is that it's like a gear check where if you can't alpha strike certain characters or deal with certain characters, you just get boxed out of the match. It's just really hard to deal with like a Hulk that can just heal all his way through. You're like, I can't hurt. It's like, yeah, you can't. You gotta stop punching him. Like there's no winning this fight.
Yeah, a cube should change to being you can only hold one. Like that part should change. And I would say that's probably the biggest problem with it. Is I don't like anything where you can just scoop up all the extracts on Hulk or something like that. But man, it's a fast-paced game. It doesn't burn people out. You play it and you just kind of get through it. And it teaches all the fundamentals. Because you have the additional reward structure of moving to another secure, it teaches people who are used to fighting games and such to kind of go, oh, maybe I should heal once here and then move to this other one and heal again. And so you have kind of increased incentive to be able to rotate, and it teaches you the value of all sorts of movement. You're like, well, I got thrown off a point, but I got charge and all of those things. And yeah, I just think it teaches you good fundamental MCP. And while I don't think it's the best combination, just like in the game, I still think it's the best way to teach the game.
Yes. Like not all scenario combinations should be the most, I guess, challenging per se.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that they shouldn't necessarily be forcing the player into very specific game plans, right? They should be like, hey, there are consequences and there's positives, right, of this scenario. And you need to play to the advantages. You need to play to the shape here and be running around and taking advantage of that fact. Because if you're not, your opponent is, you're going to lose like very quickly. Indeed. So understand, like when you see your opponent using Extremis well and you realize that they healed like 5 or 6 times and you healed like once, you go like, well, wait a second. Right?
Yep. Or, like I've had so many interesting interactions, right, where you're like, well, fuck, I'm at 1 health and bleeding. And you're like, but I want to take my 2 actions. And you're like, oh, I could heal one off of the Extremis so that I don't die automatically. And you're like, oh, like, and you have some of those interesting things that the mission creates. I just think it's super interesting. But, well, Danny, what's one you want to talk about?
I think an interesting scenario, and well, I was going to ask you earlier of how you kind of wanted to go through here, because there's a couple combinations that are not similar, but
yeah,
they're both, well, it's Jailbreak, right? It's Jailbreak, and I was thinking of like Fisk, and I take Fisk and Wedding Party, and I've been debating on Jailbreak in here. And the issue here is that Jailbreak wants you to be sitting around towards the edges in this box shape. But the way both Fisk and Wedding Party work is that the scenario is moving around, but your opponent is choosing it. Like you're not choosing it. So it could potentially be moving in directions where like, oh, one of your extract got shut off and now we're moving away from you. And now you can't score any points. And you're like, oh, this is really bad for me. Like the board state is changing all the time and I have no way of control. Like if you're not moving constantly or have a way to charge or reposition yourself, you can just get completely moved out of the scenario, like essentially relegated out of the scenario.
Yeah. I mean, without digging too much into just like what I think of Fisk and Wedding Party and how much I think those missions are either you're built for them very, very specifically, or it's who figures out which one to abandon, right? And like who abandons better, can really be the thing on those. The way that Jailbreak interacts with them is very interesting because there's like, you are making a choice of like, am I constantly having certain characters go backwards and grab it? Or am I just totally keeping some characters off the points? And like, how do you manage that? And there is probably interesting ways. You're like, I'm just going to have Nick Fury hang back. Nick Fury and the Grunts are just going to keep picking up extras. And so I'm going to only, sack 4 points. Or I'm going to bring 2 2s, and I'm just going to have Toad and Black Widow hang back and keep picking these up. Because you can't go to the middle. Or, no, you can go to the middle with it.
You can.
As long as you stay outside of 5 of the edge. And then you create the interesting dynamic of what happens if you start pushing the token towards the edge. Yeah, I wouldn't say this is on my list, but I do think it's interesting.
I think it's a very interesting scenario. And if you've never run into this, you can just get locked up in terms of the decision-making process of where to be. Because you're like, oh, I need to be here. Like, nope, that is not what needs to happen now. And now you've sort of telegraphed, you played your hand too hard and telegraphed what's going to happen. So now your opponent's like, okay, well, I'm just going to move the scenario over here now. And you need to either back up or hard engage and abandon the scenario, which you're not going to do. So what's happening now?
Yeah. What's the plan? Yeah, I think, Jailbreak, we'll talk about Jailbreak more because I have it on one of my lists as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Jailbreak is a mission that makes me wish that we had a few other shapes for secures. Right? Where it's one where I've wondered, not that I want an E-shaped secure again, but it's one where I wish that there was some like variation on the E that, not an exactly deadline, but maybe the sides pulled in even more, where it's something where you're kind of in the middle. So you're still kind of always moving out to the sides, but you can contest all of the secures. I think there would be something interesting there, but I don't know if I want anything like an E-shape for like any other extract.
Yes. It is such an interesting scenario. Like I think Jailbreak is like a very fun scenario to play.
Yes, Jailbreak is fantastic.
It's just really fun. So we go to you or do another one of mine here?
We'll do one of mine. All right. Well, I want to say, so this might be my favorite combination just in general, which is Mutant Madmen and Scientific Samples. It's 2 very scoring focused ones, but you get a flip secure in the form of the Mutant Madmen, and the fact that Mutant Madmen and Scientific Samples are opposite shapes as well.
Yeah. And
I just think these 2 together are one, they're kind of a combination that almost nobody's bad at it. Like you almost have to try to make a list that's actively bad at this, but it is a combination that I think provides lots of skill expression as far as how you play it. So this might be my personal favorite combination.
This combination, you end up rolling on Madmen and the samples benefit, so it's triggering. And so it sort of doesn't outweigh, but can refund effectively.
Yes.
Like what's going on, which sort of negates some of the problems with Madmen. I think Madmen is a very fun scenario just because things start popping off very quickly, depending how rolls go. So it is it's a good shape, but I like samples in general. I was playing a lot with Spider-Foes. It is that just extra power is so good, especially whenever you have a pay to flip. It's just so. I guess the thing is, you're getting a benefit in a bad situation. Like normally, getting a skull right is terrible, and so in Madmen, getting a skull is like, oh, well, this is now good. Like, yes, this is now good. I'll take that.
Well, and there's increased reward for like actually participating in the mission.
Yes.
You want to have your extract characters involved because they get to do even more than usual. And so I think it's a really interesting design combination, and it's probably a good one. I've never taught with this one, but I feel like if I was going to just teach pay to flips in general, I think this might be a good combination to just be, I'm going to try to help you figure out how you play in pay to flips.
I think this sort of alleviates some of the feels bad pay flips, right? There's still you have that initial roll, which makes me mad sometimes, is when there's no one contesting, you got to flip and you just can't flip. It's like the worst feeling in the world in pay to flips.
Have you
is that first turn activation not flipping? Every time I think about this advice and I consider it every time, and I just every time just a little better.
Trevor Flattery would tell you to roll better.
Yeah, he'd be right to do so. You're right.
He would just be like, just exhale and roll the dice.
Just gotta believe in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And just roll.
You are a wonderful man.
I mean, I hope we all are.
Yeah.
Is the goal. So, I just think it's a fun scenario. I like samples, and I like the dynamic essentially they play of you're incentivized to run around and do things, which I think will help people learn how to do pay to flips. I think a lot of people are afraid to do pay to flips. They're like, oh, you roll, this happens. Like, well, if it's not as bad, then teaching and learning people with this combination would help them understand it without the getting shut out aspect of pay to flips.
Indeed. All right. Well, what's your next combination that you want to talk about?
I also had a Mad Men one, but mine was with Legacy Virus. And the reason why this is so interesting to me
Because you are a madman.
is that center line. And because there's 3, right, you kind of have to commit to, if you're your first player, you're trying to commit to 2, or you're potentially giving one up to bait a person out, but you're also having to pay to flip. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong very quickly in the scenario. And because Legacy Virus, if you pick up a second one, you're paying more. So like it's a very energy intensive scenario where everything's getting taxed and it feels bad. Yeah. Like it's the opposite of the previous scenario where everything can go wrong very quickly. You're now paid to, or you're like, oh, this character drops a token. I'm going to pick it. I don't have 2 power. You're like, nope. No, you don't. What are you going to do? You're like, yep. And it plays into the power tax aspects of pay to flips and Legacy Virus where it potentially keeps your opponent from running away with the game. Well, so they're now forced to interact more with you to get the power to then do. You're like, oh, you want to fight me? Let's go, right? Let's go.
One of the things I like about when you play the triple extracts, right, that only have 3 spots, is playing it in something like Mutant Madmen, because it still keeps up the pacing of the game. Yes. Sometimes when you have 3 extracts and then you have a normal secure that's only 4 points, because some of the points you're not scoring, at least with the pay to flip, somebody's always scoring. So the game is not going to go on forever. And so it keeps a lot of the pacing in check. But yeah, it's, also like with 3, like there's not very many teams that can double safe grab the middle. No, right? And
it's not that common.
And I do think now, I haven't actually played Legacy Virus, I think, since the change. And so I think Legacy Virus probably is more interesting now with the priority shift, right? When you don't have control over it, right? Because you can end up in these situations where the player with priority gets to kind of choose which one they like. If you both have one safe grab, you get some interesting choices about like depriving them, but it feels like you end up stacking more value on the priority player. And especially when you get a plan for that totally, and you're like, oh, I know how I'm screwing over Danny because he's got to go second. But now you don't know that. And so I do think Legacy probably gets more interesting.
I think it's fun for X-Men in particular because it's midline. So a lot of the medium move range 3s are like, oh, hey, I can start punching people immediately and start generating power. So I have a bunch of stuff start happening on the board. And so I'm using it as an opportunity of you probably don't have a double safe grab. So one of these sides is going to be a double punch. So I'm just sort of setting up the scenario where now you're having to choose your least bad option. And I now can see this fight. I'm like, okay, this is the fight I'm going to have over here. So now what am I going to do about this other fight that I'm not so sure about?
I agree. All right. I want to talk about Deadline and Jailbreak together because I've now played this twice on camera. And I think it is so interesting because all of the secures, you can stand on them with the extract, but you can only stand in 50% of like the area around it. And so I definitely we were catching mistakes. I know in the last game with Lexa, I at least made the mistake once and wouldn't have actually been able to hold on to the extract. But I just think it's super interesting. And I also think that it plays really well with Deadline. Because one of the things with Deadline is when you're like, oh, well, I got you down to 1. Well, I will deadline you. So you either drop it anyway. But in this combination, it becomes more interesting about when you take the damage and when you don't. Because you're like, oh, I'm only losing the extract for a turn. And like, there's some really interesting decisions to be made with that. And like, I end up finding it to be such a thought-provoking combination because you're relatively reasonably paced. Like, medium movers can move from a secure to the extract pretty easily, you know, and it's not like too close together either, right? Like, it's still reasonably spread out. So it's not like everybody can attack everybody, but you also range 5 attacks feel really valuable, right? When a lot of the time range 5 feels overvalued in development, but on this mission, range 5 really feels like the perfect range. So there's just a ton about this combination that I find really thought-provoking, and I love playing on this combination. It's very different, and I enjoy it every time.
Yes. This is such an well, I think Deadline is a very fun scenario they added, and it gives you choices. I think with Jailbreak is interesting because generally with Jailbreak, I tend to pick up extracts later in the round.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out. I'm like, oh, I have someone else hit and run. We'll go over there later and just grab one. But then a later round, someone activates and uses a Deadline on me. I'm like, oh, I'm too close. Do I want to die right now? Like, I guess we should drop it. And now I get nothing. And they're on the secure. I was like, well, this feels really bad. I got to be really careful about my health and what's going on here now all of a sudden, which I didn't really care as much about earlier. And there are areas for you to stand with Jailbreak where you're not within the 3 of a Deadline, but then that chance to potentially
also super interesting. You know,
yeah. So you know the scenario where, but the problem is the character starts needing like your range 4s and range 5s or self places to be able to affect the board, or now they're just like hanging out by themselves. And it's like, well, I hope they're a 2-threat, right? Because then what are they doing throughout the game?
It's also a weirdly fighty combination, right? You know, because you know, it's not super fast scoring and it's not super close together, but at the same time, nobody's safe ever. And you got Deadline adding additional damage, and it's this kind of perfect balance of being fight and flight at the same time. Like, you end up with this very interesting mix where you're not playing all of one or the other, and both sides have to kind of constantly be making decisions about whether or not which one is right for them in that moment. And I love that kind of stuff. And that's where I think this one really is, in a lot of ways, it represents kind of new MCP to me. Right?
Yeah.
You know, if we think about the different eras, you know, there's points where like Demon's Researcher was MCP for a hot minute. Gross. Yuck.
But
yeah, never come back. But this, in my mind, represents a little bit of the new design of MCP. That's like, you gotta kind of do both. You gotta be able to move around. You gotta be able to throw stuff. You gotta be able to do damage. You gotta be able to like think about extracts and like, it's really all of the core elements of MCP rolled together. And I think it's obviously they're not designed to go together. They're not like a combo for the pack, but
like a set. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if we see the Deadline shape used again in the Sentinels pack. So yeah, I love this combination. I think it could become my favorite combination.
It is such a fun scenario. Like, what it really does for me is that it forces you to move around. Like, you cannot be stuck and just stay in one place. That is not how Jailbreak works. That is, standing around Deadline is basically suicide because you're just getting banged at some point. So it essentially forces you to constantly be moving around the map and understanding where momentum is and where things are heading and where your opponent is going to place their models, and think, maybe I should try to prevent that in some way. You're like, maybe you should plan ahead.
It still has good pivoting as well, but it's not like pivoting that's like, oh, if you're not a long mover, you can't pivot. Like, you still can pivot on this with a lot of good characters. And that's one of the things that I find really exciting about it, is that I like when my opponent has interesting decisions because I've got to think about them, right? I'm like,
yes.
Do they pivot here? Is that good? Do I want them to pivot? You know, what, and like, because so many more teams have the ability to pivot on it, I think it makes it really interesting. And also, I think just in general, I'm liking the way that this new extract plays and how it changes behavior, where you get to be a little bit riskier with your extract holders when you want to be, because it's only for one round.
Yes.
But also people hunting down your extract holders is less valuable, right? Because they're only getting it for one round. And so it strikes lots of interesting threat evaluations and target priority evaluations.
I think this scenario, very specifically to me, is where if you can gain free VPs, can really swing this scenario very quickly. Like the Killmonger card, interrogation, where it's like, oh, the scenario moves, like, well, I'll just kill this person anyway. Like, I don't care. Like, stab, I'll get points. And they're like, oh, yeah, like, I made up the VPs and didn't have to chase you. And now I can stand here and still get the VP later when it comes back. So now you're forced to do
now I got to play Killmonger again. Thank you.
Killmonger is great.
Yeah.
So I like scenarios that give value to these like niche abilities where they're like, hey, this is actually a scenario where this ability makes sense. Where it's like an extra point makes a huge value add when your scenarios are being turned off and things are moving around. You're like, oh, I can just generate points instead. This is way easier than like chasing you around.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What's the next one you want to talk about?
Ooh, this is like an old one that I have a lot of fun with every once in a while. And I think it's still fun for everyone to play. Is Cosmic Invasion and Spider Infected. Things are just moving around.
You just don't want anybody's stuff where they want it to be. Tactical positioning, be damned.
Yes,
be dandy.
It's just like pure disruption. The lists, and this can work both as an aggressive player and a defensive player. Right, depending on how you sort of tune this and how your list works. So this isn't just tilted to one or the other. Like a defensive player, it's like, oh, well, I'm webs or I have Wadas to charge or always place myself. Like, I don't care about getting displaced, and you getting displaced is good for me. So this is great. Like, your kid wants to stand and shoot. Who cares? You go away. And then I can push you afterward or throw a shield or do something even better. Go fly off into your deployment zone. So it's fun when you can sort of control the board. And then because you get the information ahead of time. Right, so like you see the moves and then decide your first activation. Like, okay, what can I do with this? Like, what can I do with this new information that I didn't have at the end of the previous round? Which I think is good as a comeback mechanic. Yeah,
adapting for sure.
Yes.
My only real complaint here is that Cosmic Invasion is a 16, and I don't think 16 should exist. If Cosmic Invasion was an 18, this would be like a perfect combination. I keep meaning to talk about some of the threat levels of this stuff, and I meant to shout that out when you were talking about Legacy Madmen, because I think playing a game where you're like, ooh, I can play 19 or 18 is such a fun game state, right?
We can talk about this. This is a very interesting topic, actually.
But having Cosmic Invasion be like 16, 17 is like very dangerous and can be very skewy. But I think it's a really cool functional combination, but good God, do I want more threat.
16 is like the weakest link right now. I'm okay with my 16, but there are some insane powerhouse lists at 16. I'm like, I don't want to fight that. Like, that's bad.
But yeah, well, also like that's the combination, right? Where again, maybe like a Killmonger or something could pop off because it's kind of hard to run bigger threat characters in that sort of combination. And so like Killmonger's probably just has to hunt a 4 threat.
Got charge, gotta stab someone. You can do it.
Get that kill.
All right. Where will you take us home with?
Okay, I want to talk about Lockdown. So the new Secure, which is like kind of a fighty Secure, but with Spider Infected. This is also one that I've played on camera. And I think we ended up in this game where like so many spiders were laying on the ground, right? And with a Secure turning off and how that changes where you need to go after. So you have the balance of a very fighty Secure, but also the pacing of potentially having 5 extracts around. Like, I found this to be super fun. And like with the way that Spider Infecteds move you so that you can potentially get killed. And unlike, say, the wedding one, right? Where it's a push, right? So it can be blocked by terrain. You know, the spider infective is a walk, you know, so, you know, there's less ability to just block that with terrain and such. So you get to do a lot more creative movement. And yeah, I find this one to be a really fun, exciting. It's not quite the level of excitement of like Senators, right? But it's like one notch below that, right? And I think Senators maybe pushes that murder slot machine drama a little higher than I would like.
So good.
But I think Lockdown Spider Infected walks that line just a little bit below it, where there's a lot of points on the board, but shit's gonna die.
My problem with this scenario is that because the way Lockdown works, there's a scenario where you're holding a Spider Infected and yours turns off and you get pushed or advanced back, and like your character's so far away that they can't. I mean, they're technically holding an extract, so that's not bad, but they're not going to do anything really, basically for that round, and hope that's our long mover, I guess, or if they're like a webhead. But like outside of that, like most characters aren't moving that far in a single activation.
Yeah.
So that's like a little sad, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I can see getting tilted by that, where you feel like, oh, there's nothing I can really do about this. My list isn't designed to deal with this. But on one hand, you can talk about that bad list design, right? And whose fault is that really ultimately?
Yes, yeah, indeed. And I think one of the other things about Lockdown is that it pulls the spider infected people more towards the middle, right? Where when you do like spider infected and infinity formula or something, you still feel really spread out. But I think having spider infected and being pulled a little bit towards the middle, kind of like Senators, right? Where you know, it stays a little bit more central, where either you have to like really get the fuck out of there and like have that character not participate, or things are in a lot of risk. I think it puts a lot of interesting challenges on players. And so I'm just a fan of this combination. It's one of my favorite, like, and I imagine there's probably listening people like, this is your fighty combination. I'm like, yes, I think forcing us to fight over the extracts is fun. You know, I want to hunt your characters with the extracts. You want to hunt my characters with the extracts, and there's a lot of them, and so there's swing potential. And so we have to be both careful about how we expose them, but also we definitely want to hunt each other's extracts because it's going to be a big deal.
It's going to matter. It's really going to matter, actually.
And you're still generally scoring 8 per round, right? And so there's lots of comeback potential as well, right? Because if you get behind, but you have a really great priority turn and like kill things and like then scoop up a bunch of stuff, you can make comebacks too. And so that's exciting. You know, it's got the what's the Mario Kart shell that like is the comeback shell? Is it the blue shell? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
All right, blue shell. You get a blue shell shit. Yeah.
Yes. Makes first player very sad every time.
Shell on wheels.
Stupid rubber band mechanics. The reason why I didn't have Senators on here, for example, is that I think Senators sort of tilt things towards Senators.
Yes. Senators makes almost any combination. Senators and a mild other mechanic.
It's like, oh yeah, something else is happening. Yeah, but we're playing Senators. Yeah, we're playing Senators. So I wanted combinations that were interesting, not necessarily scenarios that were warping out of themselves, where it's like the two together cause a unique combination that isn't necessarily apparent or doesn't happen necessarily with the combinations of cards.
Right. Like, I haven't played it yet, but I think playing Jailbreak and Intrusions will be weird as fuck.
I think it's super
right, because there's only one secure that you can ever contest while holding an extract.
Yes.
Right?
That is...
like, that...
Man, I would love Hulk in this scenario, right? Which is like, oh, I'm gonna like grab this thing and then still be over here and playing Intrusion, like teleport and like do weird flips to other points to do tokens. Like, that'd be fun. Or playing one of the Stranges, like that'd be funny.
Yeah, it's...
But yeah, Intrusions would just... It's the center intrusion would actually become like a dead zone. It's like, who wants to hang out in the center now?
Yeah. Ooh, you know what might be cool? Okay. It might be interesting with Guardians, right? Or something where you're like, your character comes up and then is going to drop the extract, but then Yondu picks it up and it's not his activation, so then he doesn't have to drop it.
Ooh.
It could be cool Yondu plays there, where you have somebody else grab it and like Yondu's always like snatching it up.
Well, there's always the rocket group combo, right? Where they're wide,
Yeah.
like the two models are wide enough that they're grabbing the two things and kind of just hanging out the whole time. That isn't necessarily bad. So yeah, I could see.
Yeah.
Man, it's like being static and dynamic at the same time.
Yes.
It's intrusions makes it so like you get sniped out very quickly.
Yeah.
You stand up and like, oh, don't hurt.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, so I can't really speak to it, but it was one that I'm like, this is either going to be awful or it's going to be so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, this is like just Jailbreak is a very fun scenario. And I think there's just a couple of interesting dynamics to that scenario and having to stand around. And because it slightly forces its own game plan, but the way it racks is very interesting.
Agreed. All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts? And do you want to close out the episode, or Lord Danny of Jailbreaking?
Scenario King, I think is what I prefer today. No, those are some good thoughts in talking about the modern scenarios. Obviously, we'll revisit the topic once we have the new scenarios those come out and go through stuff.
We should definitely do this.
Yeah.
Like, after we get a month or so with a new one, I think we should revisit, like, what are the new favorite combinations. I'm excited to see what leaves. Will stuff leave? How many will leave? Like,
what will
hype?
leave?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that'll be very fun and interesting. Okay. So, we didn't talk about this. I did get to get some games in. So my, move, throw. We got to go through this first, actually.
Yes.
So
move, throw us right the fuck on out of here, my brother.
Yeah. For a while, I wasn't playing Colossus. And then I remembered why Colossus in the list is for very scary teams who actually, like, for real want to fight. I'm like, oh, I don't want to fight you at all. You want to fight him. You can fight that guy.
Yes.
This is where I think Adam Warlock and, like, the very scary characters, I'm like, actually, go deal with him. Go deal with his dream. It's actually, I'm at the point of considering playing Patch Up over Brace only because of some of these scary characters. Like, Keeling 4 would be better than a Brace in certain fights.
But in the new world, like, if you're actually playing a lot of invulnerable characters and such, and maybe.
So, like, there's like a whole like world. It's caused me to rethink certain things. I think that part's interesting. But the man, the myth, the legend that is Colossus is just like being a medium move at mean base is just being able to run around and train, throw stuff at people is so good. So I went and double moved and killed a toad with a size.
Did you Cyclops, or did you Colossus voice? Did you do like a Russian accent to close things out? You're just like,
get out.
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happens when a toad is struck by a dumpster? The same thing that happens to all two threats.
Die.
All right, I love it. Thank you so much, Danny.
See you later, nerds.
Peace. You're in pieces because Colossus hit you with a dumpster. Oh no.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex